Hello, everybody. My name is Nicole Rios, and I've got opinions. Today, I am going to do my first Monday monologue. You're welcome. I am going to introduce myself a little bit more, give you a little bit more insight into who I am, what's important to me, and some of my values. And then we're going to talk about what to expect on the show so that you can know what is coming down the road. So, first of all, my name is Nicole Rios. I am a health professional. I work with clients to improve their holistic health, to improve their ability to manage stress. We do physical exercise, we do nutrition, we do stress relief optimization, and basically just getting all of my wonderful high performing people into optimal performance and helping them enjoy their life to their best. In addition to that, I'm a mom. I have an 8-year-old son. My husband and I have been married for 13 years, and he is in the military. So I have bounced around the country a lot, which has given me a lot of insight into different demographics, different people in the country, how they live, what's going on with them, and what is important. So that has really informed a lot of my opinions, especially being involved with someone in DoD, being a military wife, definitely puts a different perspective on government and the things that are happening in the country, and abroad and in the world. Um, and my career started in massage therapy. So that was my route. That's kind of what gave me a holistic understanding of the body. I learned a lot about Chinese medicine. I learned a lot about Ayurveda, and that kind of informed me on some of the alternative health views that I have, or some of the other ways to view certain things. Healthcare is definitely something I feel super important about. If there's anything that I think is going to come up in the 2028 election that's going to make a difference for either party, it's going to be healthcare. I'd love to inform my audience on what to expect, what's important, what talking points we need to watch out for, what talking points aren't as important as they're being pushed as, and just provide a little bit of clarity around that. And hopefully to prepare us to be educated about what we're looking for. I think that healthcare is the one uniting issue that people on both sides of the aisle can look at and say, yeah, that's important to us. Because we all have health, we all need healthcare, we all are impacted by that in the same way. It doesn't discriminate. So we have to look at that, and we have to be serious about how are we going to go forward from here. Because if we are looking at repealing the Affordable Care Act, it's not as easy as like saying, okay, so what are we going to do instead? We have to really think about a long-term plan. Because we thought we had one, it played out differently than expected, good or bad. I don't think it was any malicious intention. We had some, let's get right into it. So let's talk healthcare. We had some really great outcomes from Obamacare. And I'm saying that as someone who thinks that it needs to be repealed. Um, when we think about what we were trying to measure, it was people who were insured. Obamacare was really targeted and towards getting people who didn't have access to healthcare coverage insured, and also getting people who were being refused because of um, conditions that they already had were being refused for care also. And so Obamacare, a big part of Obamacare was getting those people who weren't being covered to be legally required to be covered. So those were two aspects of Obamacare that really did have a huge impact on who was able to be covered, but downstream also why so many of our premiums have gone up so much is because the insurance companies aren't able to turn away people who have really expensive diseases, which ethically you can argue is a very good thing, but in practice, we have to look at practicality. Okay. One thing that I hope that everybody takes out of being a follower, subscriber, to anything that I am putting out is that I really try to play devil's advocate for both sides. And I really try not to push a certain agenda, but I like to get people critically thinking so that we can not just make basic judgments, but we can start to see what's the downstream effect? What was the intention? How did it play out? are we able to say, despite a good intention, that didn't have the outcome we were looking for, it needs to be revised. That's where we need to get as a country. That's where we need to be willing to say, hey, whoever did it, it doesn't matter. It had a really positive intended outcome. Like I said, if we're going to look at the measured results of how many people were actually served, it's incredible. It was like an increase of 20 million people were covered because Obamacare was put into place. One of the other really interesting aspects that I take away from a recent report that I read on the Affordable Care Act is that, and I remember because it was my experience in the moment as all this was happening, was that the age of a dependent who could be on their parents' health care was increased to age 26. And as this was all happening, I was about to age out of being on my mother's insurance plan. And it made a massive and significant difference in my life that I was able to stay on her insurance plan until I was 26. Because by that point, I was married, and other people can be in careers, and I was able to be on my husband's health insurance. And I think that a huge reason that I stayed healthy through that period of my life was because I had the access to that care. And so another significant portion of Obamacare was targeted towards getting people covered in those gap years where you're no longer considered a legal dependent. And so you can't be on your parents' health care prior to that, and where you're not necessarily established in a job that's offering benefits. And so it's a really interesting thing how that kind of played out, because like I said, it actually had a really positive impact on my life. When we look at this now, I also look back and wonder, does that provision have a secondary impact on how motivated young people are to go out and look for jobs that provide benefits? Also, does it preclude certain employers from providing benefits because of? So just questions I'm gonna offer you guys all the questions that pop up in my mind, because these are important questions to ask to get us thinking. So with the addition of people being covered by Obamacare, we were able to get populations that didn't have access to healthcare prior access to healthcare. I don't think any of us can argue that's a bad thing, okay? The problem with healthcare as a human right is that it requires the labor of another, A, and B, it's a for-profit business. So we can't say that a for-profit business that's based on the labor of others is a human right for each of us. Basic ethics says that I have my rights as long as I don't take away yours. And the line where I start to take away some of your rights, claiming that my rights are being taken away, is the line where we're no longer in ethical or moral agreement. And so those are some of the things that I look at when I look at the healthcare situation, because my heart says that all people should be able to have access to care. I'm happy with a lot of these laws that were passed that say that if you end up in the emergency room and you don't have insurance or any way to pay, you can't be turned away from life-saving care. That's necessary. We need that. I also look back on the fact that a lot of the people that are on government health care are also on other government subsidies. And if we're not offering them the best of those subsidies, we're still going to end up paying for these people. And I'm not against a social safety net. I have heart and compassion, and I want everybody in this wonderful country of the United States of America to have food when they need it and healthcare when they need it. Period. We just have to find better ways to do it. We just have to find a way that doesn't take advantage of every hardworking American in order to make it happen. I also think that we need to heed the results of other countries who have universal health care. They don't have access to great wait times. They're constantly waiting long periods of time to see specialists or to have specific testing done. I don't want that to be the world we live in now either. So again, healthcare is going to be one of the areas I'm going to dig. If you're interested in that, I would love to have a conversation with you. I would love to hash it out. I'd love to have a brainstorming session. I would love to have an interview with you to pick your brain about how we get from where we are now to that vision. What's the in between? Because like I said on episode 1, I voted for Bernie. I honestly don't have a problem with figuring out a way to make healthcare available to everybody. My problem is that we have to figure out how to do that without bankrupting ourselves, and we have to figure out how to do that without having that system be manipulated and having massive fraud. And we have to have the check and balance for the system. So that's my take on healthcare. You can be assured that it will be a conversation that I will continue to bring up and have. If you're not interested in that conversation, skip, fast forward, feel free to do whatever you'd like to do surrounding it. But I'm definitely a Maha, and I am focused on the way forward for a healthy America. That's part of my life mission. Um, So the other thing that I wanted to just talk about today was JD Vance, because I I've had my eye on him. And as we look down the road at what 2028 is going to look like, granted, there's a lot of time between now and then. I am a psychology person. I'm a sociology person. I like to see how people change. I like to see somebody's progress. I'm a coach, right? I teach people about their behaviors and how they impact their lives. I show people how certain things in their life are creating outcomes that they do or don't want. And so that's kind of the perspective that I take on people. And so when I'm giving analysis, I'm giving analysis from that perspective, from seeing behavioral patterns in someone, or small shifts in behavior of someone, or a body language change, or a tone change in the way they're speaking. All of these secondary communication skills that we all have that aren't just what are the words that are coming out of our mouth. And I am bringing this up because I've seen an interesting change in JD Vance, and probably I would say the last 10 weeks, the most. And when I first heard the announcement of JD Vance being Trump's running mate for VP, I think I probably had a similar reaction to most of us, and it was, who's that? And then I started reading up on him, listening to him, and I was blown away. This guy was such a talent. He had the ability to make a point so succinctly. He could debate very well. He knew what he was talking about. I mean, he's got amazing degree. He's got military service. He's got Americana. I mean, mwah, I mean, American boy, right? And he's got the comeback story. He's the comeback kid. And that is like America. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that is America. So, my guy. He was killing it. Okay. And as a Trump voter that can admit that there are things about Trump that are awful, and he doesn't always meet the moment. And sometimes they need to shove him out of the mic and put somebody else up that knows what the heck they're talking about. I think that JD Vance is really being influenced by Trump. And I think that there are a couple reasons. I think that JD feels the momentum of Trump, and he sees the value in some of the power tactics and negotiation tactics that Trump uses when he is working with others on deals. I think that he also knows that if he's next up for 2028, a lot of these things that are currently being negotiated, as far as trade, as far as foreign policy, as far as foreign wars, he's going to be the man of continuity after the fact. If in case he becomes elected, he becomes the candidate and becomes elected. And so there is a sense of needing to posture right now as holding the same line that Trump is currently holding, so that down the line, when he is the one that's in charge in the negotiations, he has something to play with. He has this backup of you knew what to expect. I am the same persona. I represent the same energy. I represent the same power and force, and I'm going to show you what's up. So I think that that is part of why he is doing this. And so what I mean when I say why he's doing this, he's been putting out some really cocky texts. It started with him kind of like combating a few journos or, retweeting something and defending it or debating it. It started really much more that way. And I feel like over time, his social media presence has become much more aggressive and offensive and Trumpy. Dirty jokes, being out a little outside the lines of what we expect from a statesman. And I can tell you that, here's what I can tell you, is that when I first found out JD Vance, when I first found out about him, when I started doing all that research, I was really impressed. In my mind, I had this vision that my 2028 Republican candidate was going to be a statesman again. He was going to be refined and polished and not Trump. I often think about like what happens after the era of Trump because he broke all the norms. And so what happens then? Do we fix the norms and we just kind of like piece everything back together, or is it just like eternally broken and then we're just looking like our politics is just different forever? And I think that in some ways it will be different forever as far as using social media and some of these other tactics that Trump has exposed as being really important, long form interviews, um, being willing to make deals, shaking things up. Like maybe those are all tactics that will maintain, but maybe it could be a little less chaotic. And maybe we could have like a little bit more shirty and maybe like a little less memeing. Like the old school conservative in me would really love to go back to a time where we didn't see political spats play out on a feed. But that's my bias. I don't know, guys. I mean, it's super entertaining. Let's be real. I love seeing the back and forth. I'm laughing. I'm a millennial. I can't help it. Like, what a time. But the reality is like me and my friends are telling each other, like, what a time. Like, what a world we live in on a regular basis. It doesn't feel real. It's like, what show are we in, y'all? So, so I'm slightly disappointed to see this flip in JD. I really do feel like he's being a little, listen, okay, so then I cut myself off a lot. You guys got to ride with me. The ADHD is real. I saw somebody who was talking about the fact that JD has really changed since Charlie was shot, which I can understand. And here's what I'll say. Is that pre all of this, when I saw JD debate, when I saw him make certain statements to the media, and when I saw some of the stuff that he was debate posting, like I was saying, I could tell that he's got an anger to him. I can tell that anger is his trigger emotion, that he will quickly flip to it when he feels cornered or back down, and that it is probably one of his biggest things that he has to work to control. That's an assumption. This is my outward perspective, okay, when I see him and see him flustered, okay? When you see that happen with people, most often when they're hurt, that emotion, whatever trigger emotion they have, whatever it may be, anger is often one because it's a protective emotion. It's called a secondary emotion. It happens in order to protect from another emotion. So in this circumstance, JD Vance is sad because his best bud was shot, and now that kind of makes him much more nervous as a target, and now his family's at risk, and now he's got to go bury his buddy, and now his Charlie, let's be real, guys, analysis, I'm coming with it. Let's be real. Charlie was going to be a huge part of Vance's campaign for 2028. So, beyond the close personal friendship and beyond the fact that just another political figure, another person was just shot dead, regardless of who it is, now, JD Vance just sees his future. Whatever route he thought he could take with Charlie as the head of TPU and having that be a big push for his coalition, Charlie was a huge reason Trump got elected. And so I can see that JD Vance was like, all right, that guy's part of my party. That guy's going to help me get there. And now he's not even here. And he was my friend. And his wife and my wife were friends. And what now? And so you have to look at the human element of it, is that for him to, how do people deal with grief? When you're looking at grief in this perspective, honestly, we can see both sides of this being both a personal loss as far as a friend and a professional loss, a massive professional loss. And now he's got to figure it all out. He's still facing the nation as VP. He's still under fire because Trump is his president. And he, how else would people who have anger as their trigger emotion react under that level of stress, right? We all are very sensitive to our trigger emotions when we're under a high level of stress, which is why when we're stressed out, we're more likely to snap at somebody or cry without really being able to stop, or whatever those things are for you that you know, like, that's my thing, man. I can't, like, when I get pushed to a certain point, this is the emotion that shows up, right? And I feel like anger is that for him. So when I see him doing stuff like posting some of the things that he's been posting more recently, and some of the stuff that Trump puts out, I mean, we can expect it from Trump. I feel like that's the difference for me. It's like I can expect it from Trump. I was really hoping that JD would hold the line as far as being the statesman with the moral high ground a little bit. I would like to hold that position, y'all. If conservatives are the party of pro-life, we got to hold the high ground. We can't be out here sharing memes of a fighter jet shitting on people. It's hilarious, yes, but you're the president. You can't be posting that shit. Let Barron post that stuff. You don't need to be doing it. It just is not a good look, dude. So I struggle. I struggle because I want politics to be a place. Listen, I think back to the Roman square where you had to actually earn your citizenship. Like, granted, women could never, but the men were out there arguing and discussing and debating. The smartest guys that lived in the city were out there figuring out how to make this work for us. And that should be the case still. We still need the smartest guys out there. And I do want a political structure where we're not just memeing each other to death. Like I do want to see us mature back, okay? And so that's why I think about how JD goes down this path, because if he is going to start on the mega Trump memeing and the trolling and like and going as far as Trump does sometimes, which we can all admit is like sometimes he's a little far. Like I won't even post that. I won't even post it. And the president's out here posting it. Like, goodness gracious, y'all. Oy. Um so I got my eye on JD. I pray that he like pulls a quick Yui and gets it back together, and we can have more statesmen and we can get back to like politics as a highbrow situation. I miss that a little, I'm gonna be honest. Because this whole past year, like decade, has felt like an absolute movie. Like, I can't wait for the Netflix doc in like 30 years about this whole period of time because I'm gonna look at my son and I'm gonna tell him, whatever that just told you, it's not even the half of it. Okay. So the last thing that I want to start to introduce is going to be some wellness work for the week. Okay. So you can take it or leave it. I'm going to leave it at the end of episodes so that if you're into it and you want to stick around and hear it, you can. If you don't want to, cut it, baby. See you later. But I do hope that you at least listen for the first few so that you can have a really positive takeaway. So like I said, I'm a wellness coach. I really want people to live really happy, healthy, fulfilled lives. And I help teach behaviors that get people there. And a lot of them are like just frameworks that we can think how we're thinking about things determines how our perception is and how that triggers what chemicals are released and what emotions that we're feeling in our body. And so a lot of times we can make a huge change in our life just by changing our perception of something, because if we can change our perception, we change the chemical reaction that happens based on that perception, which eventually leads to an emotion. So we can kind of brain hack to experience less negative emotions by changing our perception of things. And so every week I'm going to put forward some wellness work where it'll be a simple practice. Maybe a couple days a week you can try to include it into your routine to kind of like make a difference in your life. It matters. I want us all to be happy and healthy. Like I said, that healthcare is my thing, man. And I really have seen a huge change in my life by implementing these changes. And that's really what it's about. A lot of what I'm here to say is about things that I have gone through and the wisdom that I have gotten from going through those things and just trying to give it to you guys, because you can learn from mistakes. You can learn from somebody else's mistakes, or you can learn from somebody else's successes. And I would really love if I could just share my successes with you and that you would have them implemented into your life and that those successes would improve your life also. So the wellness work for this week on my Monday monologue is going to be try to apply less judgment to your life. A lot of times when we have something come in, an event or an experience, we apply a judgment to it, which then decides what emotion we'll have to respond to it. So, for example, if your husband leaves the clothes outside the laundry basket, sometimes we can have an automatic judgment. He's a slob. He doesn't care that I work so hard to clean up the house. Yeah, XYZ. Okay. Now, I can understand those feelings and that judgment. But I'm going to ask you this. Does it improve your life? Does it improve your marriage? Does it improve your day to be aggravated by something like that? If the answer to any of those questions were no, I'm going to offer you a different perspective. It was dark in the room while my husband was getting undressed and he didn't want to wake me, and that's why the socks weren't in the hamper. Or he was so tired from working all day yesterday that they didn't make it. Or he was so full from the dinner I made him last night, he could dragged himself to bed. They just fell off on the way. Anything, guys. That's my point. Anything. Try and find anything, any benefit of the doubt, any alternate option, any other choice other than the negative judgment, and try to apply the positive judgment. And just try and catch yourself, because even identifying that you're negatively judging a situation and it's causing you distress is the point where you can change it. When we're not even noticing that it's our own perception that's causing us distress and that we have the power and the control to change it, then we're not going anywhere. So I want you guys to think about that. Think about times in your life that you have an automatic judgment of something or an automatic perception that if this happens, then Y happens. Like if I'm late home from work, then we're definitely having a fight. Just try and look at some of these things where you have automatic judgments of things and be open to rewriting that judgment. Be open to identifying that maybe this judgment always is a self-fulfilling prophecy because I started, and just taking a little bit of personal responsibility for some of the negative patterns that you see happening habitually in your life. So that's it for my Monday monologue, guys. I'll see you later this week. I'm going to bring in another guest for my second weekly episode. So the goal right now is to have a Monday monologue where I will go off and kind of talk about a couple topics on my own, and then hopefully having at least one guest interview episode a week. And then we will start from there. And if you guys like it and I like it and I have the time, if I'm honest, I will be making more. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments or feedback, I am super open to it. Don't be a hater, though. Just saying, I could take constructive criticism, but I don't want to hear the hate. I'm out here trying to do a good thing, trying to spread the love, trying to be a voice for people who need some need some critical thinking, need some tough questions asked, who want to have like a different kind of conversation. And that's what I'm here to do. So, love you guys. I will see you next time.